Welcome to Highland League Weekly, the podcast from the Press and Journal. I'm Ryan Cryle. I'm joined here by our regular Highland League Weekly panellists, Callum and Paul Third, to discuss all of the weekend's Breedon Highland League action. Now, over on the Press and Journal website, as always, on our main Highland League Weekly web show, we've got highlights of two Highland League matches from the weekend: Fraserburgh against Brora Rangers and Nairn County against Clach. To watch the main show and those highlights, you need to be a subscriber at the Press and Journal website. But the good news is you can subscribe at the moment via our sports pack, which will get you access to all of our sports coverage across the P&J. Here we'll just be discussing all of the weekend's results. We'll start with our main game, which was, as I mentioned, Fraserburgh against Brora. Don't know if this was a surprising result. Fraserburgh 3, Brora 0, Callum, but it was certainly a big swing from Fraserburgh's loss to Huntly in their previous game.
It certainly was, but I thought everything you sort of expect when Fraserburgh play well was there in abundance on Saturday. There was an intensity about their play. They played at a high tempo. Mark Cowie's kind of felt maybe at times in the first couple of games this season that they overplayed or they've been a wee bit safe. They didn't overplay. It was one touch and then move it, and there was a sort of relentlessness about the Broch throughout the 90 minutes, and really from start to finish they were the team that just sort of dominated proceedings. And it's like you look back at the end of last season and the two sides met in the R. Davidson Bankery Highland League Cup final, and it was kind of the reverse. Brora won 3-1 and they sort of did a number on Fraserburgh that day and controlled the game, and on Saturday it was kind of just sort of flipped around totally, and everything just went for the Broch. And I mean, there was lots of very good performances, and you can speak about Callum Gray with his 2 goals and whatever else, but I thought Scott Barber in particular, out of everyone that was on the pitch, was just immense in terms of the problems he caused Brora's back line, and as a result of that, the opportunities that probably created for Fraserburgh's midfield when they were getting up the pitch, just because Scott Barber was a constant nuisance really over the course of the 90 minutes.
Willie West described as a freak by Mark Cowie, Fraserburgh manager, after the game. I think he meant in a positive way.
Well, after 722 games, I would hope there's only positive comments coming your way. But I mean, what can we say about Willie at this point? He's
37.
He is a freak. He is. It's unbelievable number of games, unbelievable dedication, unbelievable consistency. I think that's what Willie West brings to Fraserburgh. He's the model professional, and the manager touched on that as well, saying if I could get every player to look after themselves, conduct themselves as Willie does, I'd be delighted. And there's no higher compliment you can give him. He's just been an outstanding servant, not just to Fraserburgh, but for Highland League football as a whole.
So you said in when he's been on the cusp of this record, there's been everyone's spoken about standards and about his sort of willingness to do extra work to make sure he's still fit to play, which is kind of admirable, and there's players right across the league do that as well, I know. But I spoke to a few of his teammates for a piece for Taper on the website on Friday, and something Greg Buchan said to me I thought stuck out. He said you can speak about he does XYZ to make sure he's still able to play at a high level and blah blah blah, but he said you've also got to look at him as a player, because he was a top, and he made a point. He's like, he's a top player. If he wasn't, they wouldn't, like, even regardless of how fit he was, he wouldn't still be playing now if he didn't have the ability. And it's like you go over the years, whether it's been left back, centre back, centre mid, up front, scoring winners in cup finals. He's done it all really. I mean, you talk about the games, but it's like 175 goals, 4th highest in the club's history. Most decorated player with 14 medals, just an outstanding player at the level, and particularly for Fraserburgh and his hometown club. And over the years, I'm sure if he'd wanted to, maybe could have gone and played elsewhere or tried different things, but he's been Fraserburgh through and through.
I feel like it's been an unpredictable start to the season. I think in normal seasons, correct me if I'm wrong, Callum, but it feels like certainly in the early going, you're looking for those like slip-ups from the teams that are maybe in the title mix, or we think are going to be in the title mix. But I mean, for me, the unpredictable start of the season epitomised few results this weekend, but the fact that Brora have, looked so convincing in their first 2 games, and then, I know what you're going to say, Callum. They did have that sort of second half sort of.
Well, Stephen McCoy has said he wasn't happy with the second half against Rothes last week, and then in midweek against Forest, he wasn't particularly happy with the first half. But at the same time, as you're saying, the other 2 halves they've played within that, they were very, very good. So, I think you talk about unpredictability. I think the thing is, it's that hard a league. It's like you look at the 3 rounds of games so far, there's been at least one sort of, either in terms of result or scoreline, one sort of shock, if you will, each time. And I mean, we'll come on to the other games, but we're sitting here after 3 games and there's only 2 teams have a 100% record, which sort of tells you, I think anyway, how competitive it is. And I mean, you look at Brora on Saturday, it's just one of them where it wasn't our day, we were outplayed, and it's like, I didn't think it'll linger in, and I just think it'll be a case of, right, can bounce back. They're playing Nairn in the North of Scotland Cup on Wednesday, and it's like, I know they're quite pleased to have that game and sort of get back to it, and it's like, it's what can Brora's too good a team to, let that affect him long term, in the same way that you see like Fraserburgh 4-0 at Huntly on Wednesday night, out of sorts, but then react really well on Saturday.
Anyway, we must move on to game 2. As mentioned previously, it was Nairn County against Clach. So, this game, 1-0 in the end. Clach lost. Another kind of, for me, an unexpected result this weekend. The goal come from Ben Barron, but there were a couple of, I only saw the raw highlights from this one, so somebody can maybe catch me up. Clach had the ball in the net twice in this game, both chalked off. I wasn't sure about either.
The first one, Ben Cormack's one, for me, should 100% stand. We've watched it and watched it.
Slow motion, everything.
And
what is the foul?
Well, there's James Anderson and Callum McLean, if you watch, beside Dylan McLean, come together, but it is the most minimal thing ever. And if that's a free kick, if you're blowing your whistle to stop the game for that, then the whistle will just be blown at every corner and free kick that's taken. I just thought it was the most minuscule thing in terms of why that was disallowed. I just can't understand why Stuart Randall, the referee, felt the need to disallow that one. And I can see why, if you were Clach, you would be angry about it. And the flip side, Wayne McIntosh sort of said after that, well, I didn't think Nairn played well in the first half anyway, but it's maybe said they rode their luck with that decision. The one at the end with the offside is different in the sense I think it's very subjective, because I think when the cross comes in, there's no questioning. Troy Cooper looks anyway like he's beyond the last person, but it's that question that, is he interfering with play in terms of, does his presence make Jamie Carnahan go and head the ball? Because
I think that's the crux of it. The argument is,
if
the player's not there, then the Nairn defender is not looking to go and get his head on that ball. He's just going to let it go over his head and out.
I can understand that. Again, I can understand Clach maybe say, well, if you watch it, Troy Cooper actually sort of stops and it's not like he's breathing down his neck. But I can understand with that one why they've sort of felt, well, as you say, if the player's not there, does Jamie Carnahan go and play the ball? In all likelihood, probably not. I mean, what we should say is, I don't know that's any comfort to Clach, but it was a tremendous header. Absolutely. Dylan McLean was at full stretch and still couldn't see it. But I could understand why that one was ruled out, but the first one for me has to.
To me, you're in the very outer reaches of the interfering with play sort of definition there. It's kind of, it's not like when you see these ones where somebody's in front of the keeper blocking the keeper's view, that's you're sort of like.
But you are interfering with play.
Yeah, I know.
If another player is making a decision on the basis you are there.
But I think it's it is borderline for me.
See, what I would say with that though is, in fairness to the officials, is you've only with everything, you've only got one look at it. But that is one where the linesman has to quickly, he's looking along the line, he's to process. Troy Cooper's getting just fractionally offside or whatever, and then it's a case of, well, him being there, is he forcing Jamie Carnan? So that is quite a in the moment. That is potentially quite a tough one to make sure you've got everything right, and I can understand why they disallowed it. As you say, it's you can debate it, but I think on balance, I'd say the fact that Troy Cooper's there does forced Jamie Carnahan's hand. But in fairness as well to Conor Gethins, he didn't pin blame on the officials for Clach getting beat. He was quite critical of his own team in terms of he felt that they had a lot of pressure in the first period without doing enough in the final third, and he also felt that they were a bit too slow, a bit predictable, a bit complacent maybe as well, which he was really unhappy with. And I think really for Clach, like, saw what they did last Saturday against Inverurie. They beat Wick in midweek when they felt they weren't at their best. And I think he was looking for a reaction to that performance with a better performance against Nairn. He didn't get it, and it probably, given like what we know Clach are capable of, I think that probably feels like a big missed opportunity for them in terms of, I think they fancied going to Station Park, remaining, unbeaten or with a 100% record and having a managed to do it. But at the same time, I'd give credit to Nairn, Wayne McIntosh's first win as manager, and good way to get it in a derby. And although they maybe had to sort of ride out the storm a bit in the first half, their goal was a moment of quality in terms of Ben Kelly's sort of creating that bit of space for himself and then delivering, and Ben Barron does the rest.
Okay, the rest of the games from the weekend to discuss. Then we'll start with Inverurie Locos 0, Huntly 3. Another great result for Huntly. Another not so good result for Locos. Pointless so far after 3 games.
And without a goal.
Yeah. Sam Robertson scored in each half against his former club. Angus Grant got the other goal. Dean Donaldson's quotes after the game I thought were quite interesting, saying they got bullied all over the park, saying they couldn't play out because Zach Ellis in goal despite having a knee injury. I think he came back in midweek, didn't he, for Locos? Saying they're up against it now. I presume Dean Donaldson was referring to potential title charge this season, and he'd rather bring in more young players, as once again there was a lack of effort from a few experienced players. Don't want to be accused of a lack of effort.
No, that's pretty damning, but I think I'll start with Huntly here, and you would have to say for them, you look at that first 3 games, it's an absolutely terrific start to have 7 points out of 9. They played for 50 plus minutes with 10 men at Forest last week and got a point against a good Forest side. They've then, had that excellent victory against Fraserburgh in midweek, and they followed it up on Saturday at Inverurie in that sort of derby fixture, which is always fiercely contested. And we know Huntly, we've seen it last season and they're showing it again. They will always carry that goal threat. Like, that's Angus Grant 4 already. Sam Robertson will claim he's got 4, but unfortunately for him, when he was texting me moaning that he's won in midweek, went down as an own goal, so it's the only 3 officially at the moment, but he's still trying to claim that one in midweek. But they carry that goal threat. But I think what will really please Colin Charlesworth so far is in that 3 games they've only conceded once, because that was the thing last season. Huntly was, they've, in terms of maybe not kicking on as they would have liked, I think they felt they conceded too many goals, and they were maybe a bit, we call them the entertainers, but they were maybe a bit too open. So I think all round they'll be really pleasing. And in terms of the goals, I mean, the second and third on Saturday, absolutely top class. And I know for Sam Robertson as well, he was deemed surplus to requirements in Inverurie, went to Huntly, had a great season last season, scored 16 goals, probably overshadowed by his colleague up front with, what did he get, 31 or something, Highland League Player of the Year. But Sam had a very good season as well last season, and he's carried it on again this time. I was interested with Dean Donaldson's quotes as well about the goalkeeper situation, because
If it's
to
affecting
me,
your
Basically,
way of
saying,
playing.
kick, well, if can't play out for the
if it's affecting the way they play, then
why play him?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You'd think
The obvious
it'd
answer,
be a case of changing again, because I saw them on Wednesday against Vermartin, and it's Zach Ellis's left knee that's all strapped, so he was passing it about and hitting it long and everything with his right knee on Wednesday. So is that question mark, and now will they change it again to try and suit the way they play more? We'll see. I think as well, and there's other teams you could say this about as well, but it's like 3 games in, they obviously haven't had a good start. Still loads of time to turn it around and have a good season. But even at this stage, and it's maybe too early to say this, but it's like, there's Inverurie, that's some 7 points behind Huntly, and they were also above Huntly last season. But it's like, if you're going to then climb, even for this stage, that's a lot of grout. I know teams will spill points over the course of the season, but it's a lot of ground to make up even at this stage.
No. And on the subject of slow starts and worse starts than teams would have been expecting, Banks of D won, Keith won at the weekend. D, third place last season, still without a win this season after 3 games. 2 draws and a loss. Larky McLeod put them ahead early on, so they had the lead in this one, but Jordan Cooper soon applied for the Maroons, who got their first win of the season. Sam Pugh was also sent off for a second bookable offence after the final whistle. Don't know what it was.
I believe it maybe was actually before the final whistle for appealing over vigorously for a penalty. Well, it was late on anyway.
Appealing over vigorously.
Too vigorously.
We were jesting, as we do, over the weekend, Callum, about Craig Ewan singling out Craig Reid as goalkeeper for praise for his incredible saves in the Banks of D game. Craig Reid had obviously been guilty of a bit of a mistake in last weekend.
Strathspey, yeah.
So yeah, he's back in the good books now.
Well, this is it, and it's that thing with goalkeepers where the old cliche, but if they make a mistake, which Craig did last week against Strathspey, probably ends up in the net. But like everyone knows, Craig Reid's a good goalkeeper.
Good striker too.
Good finisher, right? But he's made up for it on Saturday, and that's a good point for Keith. First time since Banks of D have been in the Highland League at Keith, have taken something off of them, and it's maybe been coming in a way because they've had a couple of games, more so at Kynech Park maybe than at Spain Park, but they've had a couple of games against them where they've been defeated by late goals, they've been unlucky, so a very good point for them. For Banks of D, it just feels like something's not quite clicking, and it's very easy to say this, but I said it before in our preview show, I think before the first game. I did wonder what impact Michael Phillipson's injury would have on them going forward, and I do just wonder, I haven't seen them in the flesh yet, but I do just wonder if they're maybe lacking that wee bit of guile at the moment with him being out.
Yeah, I think I said Keith won that game at the start, did I? Yeah, I did say that. It's a draw. It was a draw, but just so everyone knows. I'm going off my head. Brechin City 0. Brechin City 3. Strathspey Thistle 0. Sorry, it's all falling. The wheels are coming off. Paul Watson netted early on for Brechin, then Grady McGrath scoring again, this time from the penalty spot. Following a foul on Mitch Taylor. Killian Sheridan got the third before half time, so it was all wrapped up, the scoring there by the break. Strathspey coming in for praise from Ray McKinnon after the game for being much improved this season, but they're not quite at Brechin City standard yet.
Not many are, to be fair, but from a Strathspey point of view, it's been a really good start to the season for them. Because they won the first 2 games, and they've gone down to Brechin, which is one of the toughest venues to go to in the league, and they've given a good account themselves and actually got praise from the winning opposition manager. Ryan Essen, it'll be interesting to see how his side do as the season goes on, but yeah. Brechin, have they conceded yet?
No,
so
12 goals scored, none conceded, 3 wins out of 3.
It's early, but it's ominous.
And the goals are back in their team.
Yeah.
So like the defending's still there. The goals, they're it's looking good for them so far.
Grady McGrath scored 4 in 3 games. But see what you're saying about Strathspey. The biggest thing for Strathspey now, I think, this season is that they're going to compete in every game. There's not going to be the coffins and the big scores that we've seen in the past.
That's what you want.
Exactly, and the thing is, won their first 2 games. I knew it was the first time since they'd been in the league they'd started the season with 2 wins. Turned out we found out after they beat Rothes on Wednesday night, that was the first time since they'd been in the league since 2009 that they'd won back-to-back Highland League fixtures. So, maybe it doesn't sound a lot, but given it had been 16 years in the making, great start for them.
What's Brechin's record for back-to-back? Well, anyway, a few more games to get through. Bucky Thistle 2, Lossiemouth 1. Josh Peters put the Jags ahead. Liam Harvey quickly restored parity against his former club. Did he celebrate? Don't know.
He would have.
Josh Peters, though, another frequent scorer in the Breedon Highland League. His second was the difference between the sides. Decent start from Bucky this season?
Very good. Sort of maybe under the radar a wee bit, but 3 wins out of 3. I think, in fairness, if you look at the games, both them and Brechin, I think with the games they've had, probably if would have fancied winning their first 3, the fixtures being disrespectful to the teams they've played, but I think with where those clubs are, they've fancied that. But
you've still got to go and do it.
Still got to
thanks to D, we might have favoured.
Aye, what's the thing? You've still got to go and do it. But also, if you look at Buckets, gives them. They've got really good momentum, and it's almost like even though there's been a lot of changes to their squad in the summer, it's almost like it's carried on for last season. Like they finished last season 11 unbeaten, haven't lost a competitive game since the 1st of February. So, and it's just, if you look at last season, at the start of last season, things were a bit disjointed and they spilled a lot of points early on. And it was like sort of defence of the league titles. Marcus Goodall said to me in the summer, it was like kind of by October time, we're going, well, the league's gone. But this season they've made that a good start, confidence, momentum builds. So all credit to them. But I'll also feel Lossie deserve a lot of credit. If you look at their first 3 games, Breedon away, Bankside at home, Bucky away. That's a Kenner's no easy games, but that's a hard start. And for them to have, I know they would obviously love more, but for them to have had that win in midweek, have 3 points on the board, they've competed well at Victoria Park on Saturday, and they competed well for long spells against Brechin last weekend. Those are very encouraging signs for Lossie. And Liam Harvey,
I was going to say, yeah,
2 goals in his last 2, and he's a player they pursued for a long time to try and get him. They've got him, and it looks like at the moment anyway a match made in heaven. And I think he's maybe just like a player who needs that run of games and needs to get his confidence up, and I think he's getting that at Lossie.
Yep. Devonvale 0, Turriff United 3. Glenn Donald scored the opener in the first half. Miller Keir got a brace after the interval for United. What do we make of this one, Callum?
I wouldn't say I was surprised, because Turriff beating Vale, those games between the two of them, they're all
feisty. Yeah.
They're always it's a pretty 50-50. But I have to be honest, before the game I did fancy Vale for that. I thought they'd made quite a good start. 4 points for the first 2, but it seemed like, Turriff created their chances, they took their chances, and I mean, like Fergus Alberts had a penalty saved, and it seemed like just an off day all round for Vale, but well done to Turriff, first win of the season for them. And Miller Keir, mentioned him last week, scored, and 2 goals again, looking good. And I think you look at Turriff now, and it's interesting, you see like that team on Saturday that started, Rhys McEwen scored 15 goals for Turriff last season. He was on the bench. Mackenzie Taylor, who, when he came in November time, him and Rhys McEwen sort of as a front 2 or as a 9 and a 10, had a sort of really good partnership in here at the start of this season, and neither of them are starting, so it seems like they've got, when it clicks, it seems like they've got good depth up there as well, particularly in the forward areas.
Yeah. Forest Mechanics 2, Rothes 0. Forest, I feel like they've had a good start. Sean Sutherland struck in the first half. Callum Frame, late clincher, securing the points. Was it a clincher? Was the first goal not the clincher? Unclear.
Put the
seal on it, yeah. Added the gloss. Callum Frame did. But yeah, I mean, it's a defeat for Rothes, but I mean, Forest a good team. They're looking good so far.
You're saying they've had a good start. I think if they lost at Brora in midweek, I think if they'd won that game against Huntly last Saturday and they'd 6 out of 9, I think Stephen McDonald would be a wee bit happier. But I mean, I think Forest will. I think I've said before, I think Forest will have a good season, and I think over the piece they were well worth their victory at the weekend. It seemed like they did most of the probing. I've seen highlights and some nice moves within that, and as they did for a lot of last season, carried a good threat. Ronnie Sharp, I think, with Rothes was a bit frustrated because, I mean, defensively would like to stop conceding, but I think they'd taken heart from the Brora game and also Strathspey in midweek when they lost, that in both those games they carried a threat, and they scored 5 goals across the 2 games. But on Saturday, I think Ronnie felt they didn't really put Forest under much pressure or really threaten, so I think that was just annoying him as much as anything at the weekend. The one other thing I would mention at this game is pre-match, Forest made a presentation to Willie McLean, who's stepped down in the summer, who's been a kit man for a long time. He's been at the club in one form or another for 52 years, and it's like, even we're speaking earlier about Willie West and things, but even away from players like people like Willie and others at clubs who, give up their time for that, all those years. You just think on the sort of things he must have seen, the ups and downs, and the highlights he'll have seen over all those years with Can-Cans, deserved his sort of moment in the sun, because terrific servant to that club.
Hard going washing those yellow and brown kits all those years.
Chocolate and gold.
One more game to discuss. Wick Academy 1, Formartine United 3. Formartine 3 scorers in this game. Graham Roger, Ronan McAllister getting the second from a penalty spot, and Julian Wade got the third late on after Gordon McNabb had pulled him back. Did Formartine have a trio of...
Aye, sorry, you're right.
Yeah, did they have a trio of scorers that were over the century there? Must have been. Must be close.
What are you trying to say?
Put this up, Matt.
Domestic experienced professionals is all I mean by that. But like for Martin, I mean, Ronan McAllister, it's what, 2 goals now? Is it him for him?
Aye,
doing what he was brought to do.
He's added their firepower. I mean, they've looked good so far.
They certainly have. 7 points out of 9. Good start, and with the fixtures, tricky opening run of fixtures as well. And I think, if you'd said to them beforehand, 7 for the first 3, they'd have said, we'll take that and just tick along nicely. And they've got, I think even now, it's like they've got good options, good firepower to come off the bench and things, because as Martin Skinner sort of said on here after the Inverurie game about Rory McAllister, he's not going to play 90 minutes every week, but when he does play, he'll be good. And they've got, they can play him and Julian Wade together, or Wade can come on, like they've got good, they can mix things up. So it's all looking pretty encouraging for Martin, I have to say, at this moment. For Wick, everyone obviously has injuries at some point and things. Wick at the moment are missing quite a few guys that I would sort of call key players, in terms of like Owen Harold, Kyle Henderson, Davy Allen, Ewan Kennedy, these types of players who, are probably all starters for Wick, so it's tough for them. But I think Gary Manson just continues to be frustrated with the goals they're losing, in terms of like goals that are preventable, giving away penalties, or last week against Devon Vale it was kind of just balls into the box that they weren't dealing with and things. And as he said on Saturday, it's like, if they don't sort of sharpen up, it doesn't matter who they're playing, you'll struggle to put points on the board, because if you're sort of losing a couple of soft goals regularly in games, then you're needing to score 3 and 4 to pick up wins or draws.
Yeah, worth mentioning that Jack Henry sent off in that one for Wick for 2 bookings. Let's have a look for those watching us this week at the latest Breedon Highland League standings. That's it then for this edition of the Highland League Weekly podcast. Thank you for listening, and thank you to Callum and Paul for joining me. You'll be hearing from us again next week as we discuss this coming weekend's Breedon Highland League action. Before then, if you'd like to watch the 2 highlights games from this weekend, which were Fraserburgh against Brora Rangers and Nairn County against Clach, you can do so. Just a reminder, they're over on our main Highland League Weekly show on the Press and Journal website. You need to be a subscriber to watch the show, but you can subscribe at the moment via our sports pack, and that'll get you full access. You can also, in the meantime, before we release another episode, keep up to date with everything Highland League Weekly and everything from the Press and Journal Sport via our various social media pages. The Highland League Weekly specific ones are Highland League Weekly X feed, as well as our Highland League Weekly group on Facebook, so please join us there. But yes, until you hear from us next, please enjoy the football, whichever games you're watching.